Welcome back. This 77 Ford F250 is going to get a water pump. It needs one. This would be a good time to check the fan for any kind of wobble and make sure it spins freely. These centrifugal fan clutches are powered from the heat from the radiator, and as the engine gets hot they get to where they engage and they're solid. But when they're cold, they're supposed to spin freely. All the manuals will have you taking the radiator hoses loose, draining the fluid, and disconnecting the battery beforehand. I have a battery disconnect here, but I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to take the radiator thermostat hose and position this, or take this one loose, the overflow hose. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, the overflow hose radiator to the radiator thermostat hose is removed. It's dry in there. Reason being, the water pump leaks slowly. That's why it's getting replaced. The hose going to the bottom of the water pump will get removed later after I get all of this other stuff out of the way. Okay, these fan bolts, there's 4 of them. They're on with 7/16 bolt. And make note how tight they are on when you take them loose, so when you put them back on, you can get them as tight. Now, a lot of times what will happen is you go to take these loose and the fan water pump's turning at the same time. And that's one reason that I leave the belts on, because sometimes you can push on the belt that does the water pump, and you can take these loose. Now, I got one here loosened up already. The belt that holds this is the power steering, and I'm pushing on the belt with my left hand and loosening with my right. The belt actually holds the water pump from turning on me. These bolts will become finger tight the more you loosen them, and make it easier for them to come out. I'm going to go down below and take the 2 fan shroud bolts loose now. I think what I need to do is go ahead and take the air compressor loose, the belts I mean. This is a 9/16 right here. It's the tensioner mount, and on the back side is the I knew I'd have trouble, is the tensioner adjustment. For the tensioner pulley, and it dropped down, which allows me to remove the belt. Okay, I started removing the air compressor bracket, but decided I wanted to take the belt off the power steering pump. That bolt you're looking at right there, or that nut, is the tightening nut, and that nut right there is the tensioner nut. So once you get your belt adjusted the way you want, you tighten that nut down. Okay, as you can see, there's actually 3 of these bolts that hold the power steering pump. It was a little dark down there. I just saw the one. I should have known this. It's been a while since I've worked on this truck. Anyway, I have to loosen the other 2, and then I've got this one backed off right here. So that'll loosen everything up, and the belt will come right off. And that belt is loose. Okay, on this side is the alternator. There's a bolt right here that holds it to the block, and then one down here that is the tensioner. And I'm going to loosen the tensioner bolt first. No, actually I'm going to loosen this block bolt first, then I'm going to loosen the tensioner bolt. I can get the belt off now. I slid the alternator forward. When I get this belt off, then I'll be able to take the power steering belt off. One was in the way of the other. Okay, I'm going to take these belts off, and then I'm going to probably try and take this bracket on this alternator and maybe take the alternator and position it aside. Then I'll go back to the air conditioner and see if I can't position it out of the way. I just noticed that I'm not able to move the alternator bracket out of the way, and it'll have to come off because those are water pump bolts right there. And I have to get the fan off first. As you're taking the last fan blade bolt out, hold on to the top of the fan blade so it doesn't drop down. And the main thing here when you're taking this fan off is to keep it from hitting the radiator. Now, a lot of times there's a little nub on the end of the water pump that this fan slides over. Okay, the last bolt is out. Now wiggle it back and forth like this. You'll see the nub on the water pump in a minute. Okay. There it is, slides right over that. Oops. I'm gonna have to let it rest down here on the transmission cooler lines. I noticed I have one more shroud bolt I left in. Alright, let's see if the fan will come out now. Looks like I got a bushing I got to take off the end of the water pump shaft. I don't want to mess that bushing up. I'm almost sure it's supposed to stay with the fan, but I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't rock the pulley back and forth. I put some lubricate spray on it, and maybe by rocking the pulley back and forth I can loosen it up and have it fly off on into the dirt. I rotate it and wobble it a little bit. I am making progress, as you can see probably. Alright, got the pulley off and the bushing's in the dirt, so I got to go get it and clean it up. Now that the fan's out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and loosen what I believe is holding the air compressor bracket. And they both go into the water pump. And they are both 9/16. Wow. That's why I wear gloves. My back of my hand just hit that. I wear gloves when I do a lot of this stuff. If I feel okay. Turns out all those bolts I thought were holding this on are actually just holding the positioner for the belt, which is not a bad thing, because there's the belt positioner. And actually there was supposed to be a bolt right here. Can you see that? There's supposed to be a bolt going here that is not there. Oh, listen to this. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use this. That's terrible. Let me show you the good news. As you can see, there's the power steering pump, 2 bolts, goes into the water pump. So that'll be able to be moved out of the way. And then there's 2 bolts here. And that's the alternator. That'll be able to be moved out of the way. Gotta watch that. And take this hose loose, bottom radiator hose. And by removing these bracket bolts, I'll have most of the bolts out of the water pump. I'm going to go ahead and take. Here's another tip, might save yourself some grief. Has nothing to do with the water pump. Down here, where the transmission lines come from the radiator and the cooler, you can see right there, I put a piece of rubber hose there years ago because I actually have had vehicles where these lines will vibrate. They get them too close, and I either bend them out of the way or put a piece of rubber hose, and or both. And that'll save yourself some grief. When they wear through, there goes your transmission fluid. And the line you have to replace or piece in. What a mess. Okay, these alternator bolts here are 1/2 inch. I'm taking these loose, and these bolts from the alternator are a little greasy. Does not look like they're going into water. This one's dry. So what I'll do is I'll pull the alternator back up this way, and I will tighten this bolt right here, and that'll keep it out of the way. Don't have to lay it anywhere. Alright, this power steering bracket is held on by these two 9/16 here, and then there's a big 11/16 bolt way in the back. Okay, now the only thing I need to do is to remove the bottom radiator hose, the heater hose right here. Start with the bottom radiator hose. Alright, push it down out of the way. There we go. Now, let's go for that heater hose. Get a pair of pliers on this guy. Okay, heater hose is off. Well, here's a bolt down here that I'm a little concerned with, because if it's as long as the one I just took out, it's right next to the damper pulley goodies. Ford, why did you do that? This one might have to stay with the water pump as I pull the pump out, if I can unscrew it at least far enough for the threads to turn loose. I don't know, this other one was, and this side was pretty long. This bolt is, I can see water on its threads. So that means it's into the water jacket as well. Alright, this bolt is probably the same length as the other one, and the threads are loose, which is good. So it's not being held on by anything. That means this water pump, when it comes off, this bolt will have to be installed first when I put the water pump back on. Alright, there's one bolt right there. That's what I'm going to get next. This is where you make up for lost time. That one's dry. Well, found one more bolt. All right. Now, it should lift off with that. You can see that bolt right there. You can see where the water pump is leaking right here. Okay, you can also see that it was leaking out the bottom weep hole. A little travel right through there. Okay, they definitely look like a match to me. I have a plug here that needs to be installed over here, so I'll have to remove that. I got it cleaned up a little bit. Okay, time to put one on the bottom right here. I don't want to get them too tight. Sometimes a little tool like this will, center punch or whatever you have, will help you line up the hole, and it'll tell you which one goes into the block, which one is maybe for a mounting bracket. That one goes in. Right now I'm just trying to get a few in there. Probably have to take a few out because I get them in the wrong spots. I don't want to get that gasket set. Okay, I'm going to put one more in at the bottom. I'll let it sit up, and then I'll start putting everything back together. Like I said, I might have to remove a bolt or two to put a bracket on, but so pump feels good. It's not hitting anything, and I'll let this sit up and come back to it in a minute and start putting things back together. While I'm thinking about it, I decided to put the plug back in. This one needs one. Couldn't get the one out of the other water pump. Having a little issue with it stripping where the Allen wrench went into. So I was able to find a non-pipe threaded pipe plug. Put some sealing compound on it here. Time to reposition the bottom radiator hose and see if I can put it back in its right spot here. Time for the heater hose. Back over to the power steering pump. Okay, once I got the bolts started, I can take my electric ratchet wrench and 11/16 on the back bolt here. Okay, I like to go back with a ratchet because I did this by feel the first time taking them off. Okay, as you can see, I need to remove this bolt that I put in there because it holds the bracket, so kind of thought I'd be doing something like that. I put a little gasket sealer on it, or a little more gasket sealer. Now the alternator adjusting arm goes down here, and it goes underneath the plate. There we go. Sealer on the top bolt, and none on the bottom. Put start a bolt in it to hold it, keep it from moving on me while I go get the fan and the shroud. That has to be positioned now. Okay, I'm going to try and put the bushing on the end of the water pump. See if that'll hold. This 3/4 ton truck, I'm having to stand on my tiptoes to even reach this. Keep thinking, well, that bolt is not going to work. Very carefully, I can remove the bolt. Position the fan on and start the bolt in a different hole. Okay, that should hold while I put the fan shroud back where it goes. Okay, the shroud is on. I'm going to go ahead and position the rest of these fan bolts. I put a little WD-40 on them, the ones I remembered to anyway. They're on there loose. I'm going to go ahead and position the belt around the power steering pump. I'm going to put my gloves on because I can get cut working around this fan and the radiator. These are 7/16. I'm going to get them as tight as I can, and then I'm going to tighten the belt up on the power steering pump so I'll have more holding power and get them down tight by holding the belt the same way that I took them loose. Again, I am holding the belt tightening the bolts. Okay, that got them fairly tight. I'm going to tighten the belt up to where it needs to be and see if I can get them a little bit tighter. Holding the belt, pushing in on the belt. That's it. Okay, there's the 3 mounting bolts. Need to be tightened up, and they look like they're right where they were when I took them loose, and they're spots. Sometimes grease is helpful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tighten those up and move on to the alternator. Okay, I'm using a pry bar and a block of wood to put some tension on this alternator so I can tighten down the bolt at the bottom that'll hold it. And then I'll go back and tighten the mounting bolt on the bracket. A lot of times you can get a wrench onto these, like a crescent wrench, and you can use that as a leverage to pull your alternator with. I don't have any working room in here, so I just have to use a block of wood and a pry bar. This is where the electric ratchet wrench really comes in handy. Prying back, and then once you get used to it, it's really nice. There's my archaic way of prying the alternator back. I used the wood because I didn't have enough space down in there, and I didn't want to hit the sending unit. I'm going to go ahead and put this bad idler back for the air conditioning. I'll just leave the belt off of it. I like to keep everything on the truck that came with the truck. Okay, I got the bad pulley for the air conditioner, which has a, looks like a good compressor. Got that on. Point, note, this bolt was a little difficult to get in. The one behind it, a little further. I did not get it in. I might be able to if I have more time to work with it, but for now, the thing to do is to remember before you put the pulley on for the fan to put the this bracket on for the air conditioner if you're going to use it. So now what I'm going to do is, you guessed it, top radiator hose, overflow hose, fill it, start it, and check for leaks. Okay, there she is. No leaks. And the temperature right about there, 163,804. So this is Cars, Trucks, and Detours saying thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Until the next video, bye for now.